인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 너는 선호해 낮에는 너만큼 따사로운
I bet you guys weren't expecting that. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's raining like crazy outside. I just actually got in from New York. I was probably one of the very last people. I was in New York Monday afternoon, and I was able to catch a rental car out to Columbus, Ohio. 11 hours to catch a flight to Seattle just so that I can be on the stage with you. Thank you. And also, I didn't want the costume to go to waste. So my name is Ben. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Cheezburger here in Seattle. At night, I also play a Korean guy who raps random lyrics you don't understand. And I'm here to talk to you about the power of humor. And at this point, I could probably just sit here and drink a cup of coffee, and that entry alone would probably have made somebody's day. But I do have a job to do, and I'm going to talk to you about what it means to make people laugh. What it means to actually make somebody remember you because you brought them a moment of joy. And for Cheezburger, we do this through user-generated content. We do this by allowing people to remix popular culture and everyday life and what they see. And what happens is it becomes more powerful because people engage with that content. So we've been around for quite a few years now. We started out in 2007, and this is the Google search index for the word meme. M-E-M-E. Not meme, not mem, not meme. And it comes from a word coined by an evolutionary biologist named Richard Dawkins back in 1976. And it's described as a word to talk about things that are passed from people to people. In other words, I'm going to use the Gangnam Style video as an example. Some Korean artists who actually, he wasn't very popular in Korea. I mean, he wasn't like the #1 artist or anything like that, releases a video that makes fun of his home country for its excessive style of consumption. And that, by the way, that's what the lyrics in Gangnam Style is about. I should know, I'm Korean, so I can read those. It's not to say that we all look alike. So, things like that were passed from one person to another in the United States where people don't even understand the lyrics. People remixed it, people actually made it their own, and that's how memes work. That's an example of a viral video becoming a meme, but there's many other examples. And what happens is that memes tend to take on an air of humor about it. When we participate in the creation of more content, we tend to do it to lend somebody a moment of joy rather than trying to make a political speech or rather than doing something different. It's really humor that gets us excited about remixing content and engaging with culture. There's a lot of good quotes here. And I can tell you that laughter is actually good for your health. And I'm sure in 20, 50 years' time, we will understand the power of the miracle drug that is laughter. But for now, we'll just have to enjoy things like this. Hillary Clinton on her BlackBerry, wearing very, very sexy glasses. And people remix this content with other things that they find and that they create and tell a different story. And in many ways, this is social commentary. This is a meme that is about Hillary, that includes Hillary Clinton as the punchline, but this is talking about the ubiquity of Facebook. And who doesn't love a Ryan Gosling? Hey girl, it's Madame Secretary. I mean, you can see how this permeates life, and you can see how this becomes a canvas for people to actually express what they want to say or what they feel without having the complexity of trying to point out the point that they're trying to make. And if you talk about the power of ideas and power of humor, we have long known that humor is one of the most creative things that we can actually do because it transcends age, it transcends barriers, it actually helps you hold on to the zeitgeist of the moment. And for some reason, when you talk about brands, when you talk about advertising, this has been the holy grail. Who's familiar with the Old Spice guy, right? Good. Well, he's funny. In fact, he was funny, and he was a brand and a character that was engaging the online demographic, not just the TV demographic. He went on YouTube the moment after the first commercials aired and started actually doing video replies to people as people were talking about that commercial. And what we're seeing is that humor has a real power to keep people loyal to a subject matter, to a brand, to an identity. And what that does is it's all about creating brand loyalty through humor. It's all about making people remember that iconic image or that iconic message that you have created by wrapping it around the vehicle that is laughter. And so you can develop fun content, you can define a personality around that fun content, and what that does is it lets people in this day and age, on the digital age, interact with that piece of content by sharing or remixing or making their own. In fact, this is actually a pretty self-explanatory statistic, but it's pretty staggering to me how many people view images as the vehicle for this humor. You know, there's videos, there's text, there's threads on forums that are really funny, but still to this day, for some reason, images are still a part of the process. And you would think that we would have virtual 3D glasses where we may or may not be having cyber sex with people by now. Like virtual reality is the flying car of the internet generation. It all seems pretty close to being real, but it never really is. And yet we keep going back to images and animated GIFs. Do you guys remember animated GIFs, like when you were in dial-up? Yeah. You would wait like 6 minutes for like one tiny GIF to show up, and you'd be like, ooh, look, that hamster's dancing. 2012, we're back to that. Animated GIFs are some of the most virally passed on images today. It doesn't have audio, you can't really control it, yet that simple looping motion, that ability to actually extract a zeitgeist out of that video makes people want to create more and more animated GIFs. So in terms of creating a personality, this is an example of a campaign that we did for Toyota where we took a car whose campaign was, it's a car. Like, talk about a challenge. Hey guys, we're Toyota, we have this car called Yaris. It's brand new. It's really actually not exciting at all. In fact, our entire campaign is about how not exciting this car is. Like, I don't get it. And Toyota explains to us, well, you see, we want to sell cars to people who just want a car. Like, they don't care about how much horsepower it has. They don't care about how sexy it is. They just want a utility vehicle. Like, Toyota is going to own up to the fact that people buy Toyotas because they're reliable. It's like, oh, okay, great. That's a huge challenge for us. So we did what we usually do at Cheezburger, which is to unleash this upon our users to say, do whatever you'd like. Turn this into whatever you'd like. So we ended up making 5 different contests, and there were thousands of submissions of people interacting with a brand to create a message and basically create free advertising. The grand prize, not a car. $500 worth of burritos. I think we could have made the grand prize a wet napkin, and people would have still done it. It's not the incentive of creating content that people are responding to online today. It is the process of creating content that people are responding to. If you make the process of remixing and creating content fun, they will do it. And in fact, people define new content very differently today. It used to be that when you said, make something, create something, be original, you grab the camera or a canvas or your copy of Illustrator, Photoshop, and you started drawing something. You literally started creating. And so the idea of creation came from a mental image, not a physical image or not a digital image. It came from an idea that you had. Oh, right, I saw this MC Escher drawing. Maybe I can do something similar. All of our ideas actually come from some other place. And so what we would do is we would take a mental memory of that and then create something, quote unquote, from scratch. On the internet, when somebody says, I made something, they're talking about one of these 3 things. I curated something, I made a blog that is all about the best Gangnam Style outfits. If you have that, feel free to post my picture. Or they remix something. Oh, there's that awesome video, but you know what? I'm going to create a mashup. And when you make it, that's mine. Even though I took 2 other people's content and mashed it together, it becomes mine. Or you actually start creating something. But the idea here is that people online have a very different definition of what is theirs. What is it that they have created? And this is actually quite good for creativity because it allows us to quickly get to cultural relevancy. In other words, when the world is changing so quickly and so fast, when so many things are coming in and out of style, how does the world stay relevant? And it's because people aren't creating everything from scratch. We're not reinventing the wheel every time. People are curating, remixing, or creating their own content to talk about the world that they live in. Free candy, especially relevant for Halloween. That's my car. I'll be outside. If you'd like some free candy, let me know. Just knock on the door, close it behind you, don't worry. When people try to be culturally relevant, this is often what happens. I am sure that the intent of the man offering free candy is totally legit. I am sure he's just trying to reach 16 to 19-year-old males in a specific geolocation. I am sure that candy came up in their demographic research as an item that these 16 to 19-year-old men in this special neighborhood would probably like. But they wrapped it in a very disingenuous costume. And that's the problem with trying to be culturally relevant without engaging with the audience. It's like looking at a strange dude hanging out by a playground. There's something really awkward and unusual about people trying to reach an audience that is not theirs. In fact, increasingly, the places that we spend our time, the places where we make informed cultural opinions, whether you like it or not, or whether you acknowledge it or not, the way we actually describe our world and consume it is through our peers. And you can talk about the filter bubble all you'd like and talk about how good or bad it is. Fact of the matter is, it's happening. And if you're trying to be creative, if you're trying to reach these people, you have to acknowledge the fact that more and more bubbles are appearing because it is now easier for us to keep that bubble intact. I could probably spend an entire week never having to read the news as a primary source and only consume what is in Facebook or what is on Twitter. Will it make me an informationally poor person? Probably. Is it a sufficient time replacement? Yeah, it probably is. I don't need to get out of my bubble to know that there's a world beyond it. And if you are trying to reach them, if you're trying to break through, if you're trying to craft a zeitgeist, a thing, an expression of the moment that is so good that it reaches through that bubble, you have to know what it's like to be one of them. Because unlike us and our generation who actually had newspapers, who probably watched some TV, the upcoming generation will only watch the internet. And that means that there are less and less things that are overtly common among us. That there are more things uniquely common to small groups of people because they spend their time in their bubbles. Now, I don't know how society will turn out because of this. Maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse. Things tend to get better over time. But fact of the matter is, it's a reality that we all have to deal with. And in fact, what we're seeing is that this internet bubble is actually helping businesses like mine, where people spend more and more time crafting memes, remixing content, sharing them with one another, and spending that time sending a message by putting their imprint on it. Not just saying, oh, this is what the New York Times said, I will share it with you, but saying, this is what the New York Times said, and I think that's bullshit, and I'll share it with you. And that actually has a meaningful impact. That is the essence of internet culture, where we can actually say, you know, we don't need to just sit and receive the content. We can actually remix it and create something new, something even bigger, something that speaks to my generation, my audience, and my bubble. And in fact, sharing on our sites, as we've gone more and more into this direction, have grown, and it's grown rather exponentially. And what, any fans of Futurama? I know, it's a great show, it's totally underrated. So what we're seeing here is that this user-generated content, this cat with a funny misspelled caption, that TV character who's now been reduced to a caricature, actually has meaning because it is the vehicle in which the message is sent. The memes are the messengers. And if you think about how powerful that is, if you think about if you're a brand, or if you're a content creator, if you're a creative person, that one day you will create something and it'll become the messenger of almost every expression, of almost every feeling, there's something wonderfully chaotic and random about that. The creators of Futurama probably never thought that this would become the punchline to millions of jokes on the internet. And frankly, they have no control over it. You could try to tell them to cease and desist, but fact of the matter is, the cat's out of the bag, and it'll never be put back in. In fact, most memes, what happens is that they will take an original context like Fry and his "shut up and take my money" moment, a clip that lasts 2 seconds on one episode of Futurama. People will take that and turn it out of context. They will take it and put it in a brand new context where this is actually about imaginative products or ideas on the internet and an expression that is the punchline to that. And every meme has that quality of being twisted out of its original context. If I take the Hillary Clinton example, it is just a press photo where she is probably at some conference, bored out of her mind, doing what it is she does on a BlackBerry. And we take that out of context. For some reason, that image becomes iconic and becomes a punchline to a bunch of other things. It says something about Hillary Clinton that is difficult for us to say in words. And it'll probably take the Atlantic 6 years and 20 pages of dissertation to figure out what that really means. Which is basically what they did with the photo of the Situation Room when Osama bin Laden was killed. You see that photo of all these people basically staring at some monitor that's off the screen, and it's like the entire United States, administration heads sitting in a room watching intently, and that image, this image of a very serious moment, becomes a butt of a joke. And how do you explain that? Well, my explanation is that it has to be easy to do. Images are still very popular online, more so than videos, more so than text, because it requires zero commitment. When somebody sends you a link, what they're saying is, if you trust me, click on this. Or if you have a lot of free time, click on this. And most of us have neither. I tend to not trust the people that send me the links, and I tend to not have free time. Let's be honest. If you send me an image, I've already seen it. Literally, as it shows up in my timeline, I have seen it, I have consumed it, I can make a judgment about it. If you send me a video, I have to press play. And the question is, do I trust you and do I have the time? But with images, it's very, very different. Because of that lack of commitment, You didn't need an explanation of this one? Okay. It requires zero commitment. The moment you have seen all the pixels on that page, you have already digested all the information. And that's why images are still very powerful today. And so while we talk about the internet as a tool, as something that's complicated, that we can actually continue to advance, and how we can talk about high-def videos, the lowly image and giving people an easy way to remix that content is still one of the most powerful ways to do it. In fact, there's actually a way to look at this. Trending memes of 2012, it's so far, they're all images. Oh my god! Some random photo of a girl in braces being really excited about Goosebumps. Shows up on Reddit and all of a sudden becomes a meme called Oh my god. Why is this funny? We all have known somebody with braces, right? Or we might have had them. And so this is a zeitgeist. This is a moment that takes us back to our childhood, about our enthusiastic excitement, not knowing what we look like. And this woman has unfortunately become the poster child. And adding "if you know what I mean" at the end of ordinary sentences can make it sound sexual. This is the 21st century equivalent of adding "in bed" to the end of fortune cookies, if you know what I mean. And Mr. Bean and his expression is perfect. There's actually like a line, drawing of Mr. Bean, and it looks exactly, has the same power as this image. Here's another Reddit one. You didn't comment on my Facebook status. Are you cheating on me? She's actually got like a YouTube video channel now, and it's actually quite hilarious to watch how she's owned this. And if you look at internet celebrities and fame online, and I have a little tidbit to share with you. Who remembers the song Friday by Rebecca Black? I'd like to apologize on behalf of my company. One of our blogs, The Daily What, is the site that found this quote-unquote video. And from there, it went to Tosh.0 and a bunch of other blogs. And so the reason you have Rebecca Black is thanks to one of our employees. So just buy me a beer afterwards if you like that. Still a better love story than Twilight. There's probably a 50 Shades Grey equivalent of this, which is like a 5-year-old's handwriting, and it'd be like still a better novel than 50 Shades of Grey. But this refuses to die. It's amazing how long this thing has gone on. I mean, Twilight is rather old in terms of meme years and how the subject matter has been actually around for a number of years. Yet there's a group of people who will see something, and there'll be a marginal relationship between two subject matter, and they'll be like, does this take it one step further? Does this take it one step further than the last still better love story than Twilight? And they send it in. And it's incredible because it's almost like a game. It's a game and a competition among people who have never met and who don't know the score, but they keep playing it. So what we want to do here at Cheezburger is we want to talk about what it's like to build a platform, because we were a media company for a long period of time. And one of the things that we realized is that as a media company, as a content curator, that it wasn't quite what we wanted. Our mission is to make the world happy for 5 minutes a day. And what it's turning out is that when it comes to humor, when it comes to humor on the internet and internet culture where people remix content and curate it and share it with one another, being a media company actually wasn't sufficient. So in January of 2011, I took a profitable company and I basically said, let's bet it all again. And the idea is that the platform, you've seen it with Twitter, you've seen it with Facebook, a platform that allows users to make each other happy for 5 minutes a day is far more interesting than a media company that's trying to make the world happy for 5 minutes a day. In the old world, there's an analog to the media company. It's called a media company. It's Comedy Central. It's The Onion. It's all these places where the model is understood. The model is that if you create content or somebody gives you content, and you are able to curate it and distribute it, you are the winner. You can sell advertising against that. That's a pretty good model. But in the day and age where the number one difference is that people are able to make anything, like putting a bacon and taping it to the side of a cat. I shit you not, this is real. Like, some dude on some blog decided to take a nice slab of bacon, put it against the side of his cat. Cat didn't care. Took a picture, uploaded it to the internet. All of a sudden, it was everywhere. Bacon cat. That's how the internet names things. We're really creative. And so what we did was we decided, okay, how does this work? We enjoy all this stuff, but how does this actually work? And it turns out memes actually have a relatively easy 3-step process. I can't tell you what the next big viral sensation is. I can't tell you what the next big meme is, but I do know the pattern that it'll take the moment that it comes into life. And what happens is that initially there is a framework. So, still a better love story than Twilight. The framework is that phrase applied to a single image. And that single image depicts a marginal relationship between a person or two objects, right? So, Twix bars, 2 Twix in 1, still a better love story than Twilight. Like, it's not a very good one, but it still works. You get the framework. And so all memes actually have a framework. And what you want to do is you want to give people the tools to recreate that, whether it's a caption builder or whether it's a graph builder or whether it's Photoshop itself. You want to give people as easy of a tool to actually do this online. And as more online services develop, as more people can create tools to manipulate images online, memes are actually spreading faster and there's more diversity because of that. Somebody was actually telling me, and this is relevant to step 3, that one of the most interesting meme communities that they've seen is bodybuilders. Anybody here a bodybuilder? Or works out religiously? Okay. A handful of you. It's that kind of group. I get it. Obscure bodybuilding protein shakes apparently have entire like sections and forums devoted to memeing them. I mean, it's like really like bodybuilders, and they make jokes about protein shakes. They're like, yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And that tells you the power of community. When a meme actually gets discovered, it is because a small group of people decided that it was relevant to their interests. Okay, that's bad. Okay, it was relevant to their community, that it was something that resonated with them. And from there, it shares and goes on to other communities, and it goes from there to other ones. When we talk about memes and we talk about ideas shared from person to person, the better way to actually look at it is ideas that are spread from subculture to subculture. And if you want to make something mimetic, if you want to add a meme-like quality to what you do and what you create, you want to think about communities. Because if they respond positively to the framework that you have created and the tools that you have given them, it's more likely that it'll become a meme. Here's an example of IE. Browser you loved to hate. IE9. How many of you profess to loving Internet Explorer? It's Seattle, people. There's no hometown love of any kind. So Microsoft knows this. So this is an example of a company that knows that they're kind of not liked. How do you deal with that? Most brands are like, we're loved by our users. Like, the only people who use IE, the running joke is that they don't know how to download any other browsers. So they came to us and said, we need some help. We want to come up with a framework. And we're like, okay, let's talk about a framework. And they said, we'd like to do a graph where we talk about chasing your meal. And we want to talk about things that come back or things that have a second life that is better than the first one. So, word games, Scrabble, and then this is a builder that allows you to put in letterpress, for example. And so we gave them this framework, and they were able to actually turn it into a builder that allowed them to actually get more creativity about Internet Explorer. This is a commercial example, and this is a very difficult one because the message is very, very, very transparent. We want you, the user, to do free work for an advertiser that you may or may not like. That's a tough sell. Like, it's hard enough doing something that you like, let alone telling somebody that they should create free ads for Internet Explorer. It's like, what's in it for me? What's in it for people is fame. What's in it for people is a moment of glory. It isn't 15 minutes of fame, but it's 15 people who've seen what you've done and says, that's actually pretty good. Maybe I can do it a little bit better. So if you're able to harness this subcontext of competition, this idea that we can put our fingerprint on almost everything that passes in front of us, and if you believe that that makes the world better, that is the core of what internet culture is all about. And if you give them an easy set of rules, a framework, and if you give them the tools to do it, and a community that will respond to it, they will likely embrace the idea of turning something into a meme. It's really hard to boil down a cultural phenomenon such as memes and viral videos to just a simple set of rules. And in fact, a lot of people kind of rage against the idea that you can actually take something from a subculture and expose it to the masses and make it more appealing because then they'll say, I like that band well before they hit #1, right? There's a little bit of hipsterism involved. But the fact is, the reason you know of these memes is because people decided that they were worth more than the community that they were being shared in. And every time you share something, every time you post something to your Tumblr, every time you recaption something on Cheezburger, the idea is that you are contributing and participating in a society that values its involvement more than just leaning back and watching something. And I think that the world will be a better place because of that. And because what we do mostly is to want to make each other laugh, that even though we may show up on stage wearing a weird tuxedo, and I might not know whether you're laughing at me or with me, it doesn't really matter. Because if we don't take ourselves so seriously, if you try to make people happy, there's a lot of power there that we will unleash in terms of creativity. Thank you. Questions? There are microphones up here. Feel free. If you don't, just shout a question. I'll repeat it back. What's it like to perform in front of 100,000 people in Seoul, Korea for a song that I wrote? It's pretty awesome. And I'll paraphrase myself. There was a Ask Me Anything that was recently on Reddit where I answered those questions. And you know that scene where there's a woman like with her, like she was bending down and she's got her like butt in the air and he like goes, ah, you know? So somebody on Reddit asked, why were you so mad at that girl's ass? And his reply was even better. So Sai replied, because her ass was mad. The dude's Korean. What does he know about English jokes? I can't even do that. All right. Any questions? Yes.
So with these memes and they get this kind of momentum going, what kind of safeguards are there to prevent things like Reddit, your nights in the new, or dig, people just abandon something ship Reddit that has a whole other piece to that, but where a mass of people can kind of control what ultimately becomes a meme thing, and they almost creates this kind of control freak environment where
So is your question, how do you control?
how you ensure that that doesn't happen?
The question is, how do you prevent something from becoming a meme?
No, how do you prevent a mass of people from artificially creating a meme?
Oh, how do you prevent a mass of people from artificially creating a meme? There's a meme called a forced meme. We're getting really meta up here right now. A forced meme is exactly what you're talking about, where people try to create memes. They try to make them. And IE9 and Yaris are examples of forced memes or forced memeing. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's like calling some kid, it's like you see a kid on like a bicycle with training wheels going down the street, and you're just like screaming at him. You're like, you're not riding a real bicycle. You're just a dick. Not everybody was born with the ability to caption things like that. And so we need forced memes. We need things that help us understand how things work and don't work. And in fact, actually, as more and more of internet culture becomes intertwined with popular culture, and my thesis is that internet culture and popular culture will become inseparable and indistinguishable at some point. In fact, I think I'm a living example. November 7th, 11 p.m., we have a reality show on Bravo launching, like a full-on cameras in the office reality show. And so we're about internet culture, and now we're crossing over into popular culture. So as that line gets blurred, you will see more people creating bad memes. In fact, there is actually another meme from Futurama, Zoidberg, and he's shouting from a crowd, and it says, "Your meme is bad, and you should feel bad." And so we use that when there's a crappy meme, and it's actually quite effective. You're literally just shouting at a child on a bicycle on training wheels. You can't stop it. You should just embrace it and just know that someday those people will grow up and make better memes. Yes? How do you toe the line between funny, controversial, and inappropriate? Comedians will tell you that the best humor is the most offensive. And they kind of know their shit, right? Like they know what's funny, and you've seen videos of some comedian on stage, and they'll say something, and somebody in the back's like, "Too soon," right? And it's like they're talking about the Titanic. Like, really? And that's a pretty interesting phenomenon because apparently things are funny if people died a long time ago, right? Like, there's an emotional sensitivity that's like a bell curve, and most people, generally fall into that line of like, if 9/11 still is quite not as funny, right? People don't make 9/11 jokes, even though that was more than 10 years ago, but people will make jokes about a plane crash, right? Is it the number of people who died? Is it the harm to the public psyche? But I think really innovative humorists or comedians or users will toe that line between too soon and too offensive and too late. And if you're talking about things that are too offensive, my personal theory is that everybody has a sense of humor that has an audience. whether that audience is deserved, that's a whole nother question. I mean, people make offensive jokes all the time. I mean, this is election year. There are things that people find funny that would find disgusting, but fact of the matter is that's part of the expression, that's part of free speech. Any other questions? Yes?
I guess I'm having a difficult time imagining how I might convince a brand that I would work with to take the chance of putting themselves out there to user-generated content. Do you have any tips?
So the question is, I'm working with a brand and they don't really want to take chances on user-generated content, let alone memes. How do I convince them? What are some tips? You know, we deal with this all the time. Cheezburger's revenues almost entirely come from advertising and working with brands. And so the question they come to us is, how do we control this? How do we? It's like, I just drove 11 hours to get away from a hurricane on the East Coast. It's like me screaming at the wind and going, how do I control you, internet? But I can't say that in front of a customer. So we usually what we do is we go to our search engine on our site and we bring up their brand name. We're like, oh, you're Swiffer. Type in Swiffer. And like 50 things show up with the word Swiffer in it. And the client's jaw just drops. And they're like, they're doing this already? It's like, yeah. Somebody somewhere on the internet is talking about you. And it may or may not be favorable. Chances are it's not favorable. Somebody somewhere in this audience is captioning me right now, and it's probably not very flattering. But you accept that. You own it. You move on. You understand that brands are being talked about all the time. In this day of Twitter and social media, it is crazy to me how many brands are like, we will not see, no, we don't see those tweets. No, people aren't talking about us. And so we tell them they're talking about you, and this is a way to actually grab onto that conversation. This is a way for people and brands to actually get engaged with an audience who's already talking about you and change the relationship. You might not be able to change the subject matter, right? I was when I was in Columbus, Ohio this morning. I had a reservation at 1 a.m. At a rental car counter. I showed up and they'd gone home. And so there, I was like, oh, I was in Pittsburgh. It's like, I have to drive to Columbus. How the fuck do I get a rental car? There's no one there. I was like literally like going back behind the counters, like looking for car keys. I'm like, I'm going to steal a car today. If it kills me, I will make it to Columbus. That was 1 a.m. So that rental car company cannot change that experience. But what they can do is they can change the nature of that relationship. Had somebody called me up today and said, hey, we're really sorry about that, it changes the nature of that relationship. And engaging in user-generated content, recognizing creativity, recognizing people who say good, bad, kind of funny things about you, changes the nature of the relationship. And I think people and brands understand that more than ever now. So, yes, other people? Yes? This side's winning, by the way. I don't know if you notice. This side's totally kicking your ass. All right. The Cheezburger? So of the very first photo that the two people who founded Cheezburger, the site, posted was this picture of this fuzzy gray cat, and he's got a smile on his face, and he's looking up to the right, and the caption says, "Ican has Cheezburger." I wish he would have spelled it C-H-E-E-Z-E, because that's closer to the actual word cheeseburger, but like we had to kind of take what they had. So the reason there's no third E in cheese is because some dude did that, and we adopted it as our name. You roll with the punches. Lemonade out of lemons. Yeah. Yes. Where did I get my sunglasses? A company called Warby Parker, which is a really cool company out of New York that, like, it's $100 glasses. It's amazing. And every time you buy a pair, they donate a pair to a developing country. Yeah.
What's your favorite meme of all time?
They're really catching up fast. Like, they're just like throwing questions. They're like, I don't know, what color are your socks? Yeah.
What's your favorite meme of all time?
What is my favorite meme of all time? That's like asking a parent which child he loves best. None of them, really. I start my day with my cats, and I end my day with my cats. So lolcats are still my go-to make me feel happy meme. But there's like other really obscure ones. I'm gonna be a little hipster. There's a little meme, very, very short-lived, long time ago, called brushy, brushy, brushy. Does anyone know this? Yeah, I bet you don't. It's a zookeeper who's got a bat in his hand. And the bat just like, kind of looks a little sad. He's like, oh. And you can see out of the top of the photo, there is a toothbrush with some soap on it. And he is bathing the bat by brushing him with a toothbrush. And it just says, brushy, brushy, brushy. And then there's like really random stuff that's hard to explain, like Will Smith. Anybody know Will Smith? So they take pictures of Will Smith and they shrink his mouth. This shit's a meme, people. I don't understand. Like, it's like, oh, you know, I got to do my college papers and I got to graduate. But what can I? Oh, you know what? I'll shrink Will Smith's mouth. So they make his mouth tiny, and sometimes they shrink his ears. And now it's like almost every facial expression. So he got this giant head with tiny features. And he says words like his mouth is sewn shut. So he will say words like this. And captions will say things like, that sounds more Sean Connery. But like, you know what I mean? Like they'll say like laptop, not laptop, laptop. Random stuff like that. Yeah. Yes? Can I do the dance again? Is the DJ ready to roll? If you are, I will exit the stage after one last question with a dance. Last question. Yes? Who's my favorite comedian of all time? Besides myself. I'm a CEO. Am I here to amuse you? I mean, I have a real job, you know. I don't have one, actually. I mean, that's not a great answer, but I don't really have a favorite. I don't like watch a lot of comedy. I don't watch a lot of stand-up comics. The things that make me laugh aren't things that are intended to make people laugh. They're funny because that they are, right? They're funny because like I'm trying to make lemonade out of lemons. And so I do have to say, and I think this is a really cheesy answer, but my favorite comedians are the unsung, unnamed people on the internet who are probably better off doing something else, but make funny shit instead. All right, are we ready? All right, thank you, everybody.